In China's desert, a new energy power plant with an annual output of 4 billion kilowatt hours has been built. This power plant not only tackles China's energy shortfall, but it also helps to regulate desert. Greening promotes plant development in rice in dry conditions. After receiving the Guinness World Record certification, this facility is currently the world's largest solar panel power plant. So, how did China build solar power plants in the desert? Power has been scarce in several countries throughout the globe in recent years. Power, for example, is now seen as a luxury by Europeans this year. Since the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the EU has joined the US in imposing sanctions on Russia on many times, raising energy prices. Europe is in especially bad shape, with France and Germany experiencing energy shortages. The International Energy Agency predicts that this winter will be exceedingly difficult for everyone. As a result of the significant increase in natural gas prices, Europeans should refrain from importing a large number of cheap electric blankets from China, knowing that China does not need to pay for expensive natural gas, but instead relies on solar energy to meet its electricity needs and only needs to pay 0.8 USD per kilowatt hour of electricity. Europe as a whole is taken aback. In reality, the concept of solar energy production was born in 1968 in France, in a building designed by a French architect who used a mirror to gather sunlight and direct it toward a mirror. At the time, scientists working on the solar energy complex thought it was more of a study of the sun than an effort to create cheap electricity, despite the fact that the temperature may approach 3,500 degrees Celsius and despite having 1.4 billion people. China will not have energy shortages like Europe, and with a rising number of technological things in everyday life, they are presently preparing for the future problem of green power supply. The 3 beautiful dams in the North-South Water Diversion Project provide 80 to 100 billion kilowatt hours of power for China each year. However, their power usage continues to rise. Throughout the hot summer, there's still plenty of energy accessible in places of China where the industrial sector is strong. Summer. The traditional fuels for power production include oil and coal. However, this process generates a significant amount of carbon dioxide. Solar energy, according to Chinese experts, is the most promising field for future power production. As a result, at a time when academics from many countries are still investigating how to utilize solar energy to solve electrical issues, China has begun to innovate actively in the concept of frame. China has handled these problems on its own, implementing ecological greening and animal husbandry in deserts utilizing solar energy. The Desert Power Station project, worth $460 million, covers 14,000 square kilometers and aims for the installation of 1.70 million solar panels. China completed the structure in less than 6 months. The world was taken aback by China's speed. What significance do solar power plants have in China? The first solar power plant has a capacity of 60.85 megawatts. According to estimations, there are 1.78 million solar photovoltaic panels in all, with a power conversion capacity of 2 million takeout. Based on the maximum power output, there is enough to create 5 times the quantity of energy required yearly by the total Chinese population, which would not only alleviate China's power shortage problem, but would also generate revenue from exporting electricity to neighboring countries. The second China's desert greening effort considerably benefited the development of the desert solar power plant. The first difficulty to be handled is control of the desert. From the 1980s to the present, China has weathered nearly 40 years of arduous sand management with the assistance of tens of thousands of Chinese residents. The desert is presently 53 green, making it the most successful desert greening effort in the history of Some of the wind and sand are now being blocked by green vegetation. The desert may be completed on schedule once the power plant is completed. It can also help people manage the desert. Engineers use a tracking photovoltaic support system to monitor the sun's angle in the east-west direction in real time. When using sand's high reflectivity to light the module, the conversion efficiency is more than 1.6. Each of these 1.78 million solar panels is more than 2 meters tall and can grow plants underneath it while providing electricity. Ecological restoration and desert management are accomplished by effectively avoiding the bulk of wind and sand from destroying desert vegetation. These solar panels improve plant life conditions. Under the panels lies the Kabuki Desert, historically known as the Sea of Death. The golden sand has become an oasis, with flora covering 63% of the desert. As a consequence, the power plant and desert greening are the most effective. The third way increases man's economic earnings via herding. This desert used to be devoid of flora, making it hard for people to maintain sheep and cattle. However, grass may now be grown underneath the 2-meter solar panel. After gaining authorization to farm a range of crops, shepherds who live near the desert may spread grass on this base. To earn a living, sheep and travel are required. Additionally, various Chinese medicinal herbs will be produced and supplied to wholesalers, as well as rice. China has cultivated rice effectively in the desert, which is unique. Many families who live near the desert choose this path to lessen poverty, live comfortably, and profit from the many. People's lives are improved through ecological, sustainable, and circular development. The fourth advantage is that it tackles the problem of electricity pollution in China. Thermal power, hydropower, wind power, nuclear power, and solar power presently account for 1.27% of total energy generation. Thermal power production continues to create the vast majority of pollutants, and significant amounts will be produced during thermal power generation. Coal is a source of pollution that will ultimately have an influence on people's health. China wants its electrical grid to release 80% less carbon dioxide than it does now by 2035, and without the use of coal. Solar energy is an environmentally friendly energy source that emits no pollution. It is a clean energy that meets the criteria of green and low carbon transformation standards, and it emits no greenhouse gases. Considering that this power plant has produced energy, China puts a high importance on the contribution of solar and wind. To improve the overall dependability of energy supply, more than 4 billion kilowatt hours of electricity have been created, resulting in the avoidance of at least 135 tons of coal. Solar power generating has enabled people to have access to energy even when it is dark. When the base is successfully created, it will produce a large quantity of power, which will then be safely sent to distant Beijing, Shanghai, and other important cities with high rates of energy consumption. People in the community no longer have to worry about high electricity bills or power outages because of solar energy, which has brought them a significant amount of relief. Although not as large as the solar power plant in the Sahara Desert, China is home to a sizable number of photovoltaic solar power producing facilities. These plants provide enough power to meet the demands of the nation. China has set the high objective of including solar energy development as one of its future energy development goals in order to satisfy its commitment to lowering carbon emissions and developing a healthy environment for the globe. Second, they seek to use solar energy to effectively overcome desert stiffness, which would result in the change of the whole Chinese desert into the lush agricultural countryside. If China's plan is implemented in other nations, people will no longer have to worry about having inadequate access to electricity, and the planet's ecosystem will improve. Please share your thoughts and opinions. Click here to view a video about another frightening project.